Hello, wanderer of the inner world. You arrived here because something inside of you whispered a truth you could not ignore. That silence, strength, and self-mastery are not luxuries, but the very foundations of an extraordinary life. And let me tell you something powerful before we go deeper. Most people will spend their lives surrounded by noise, distracted, desperate to fill the void, and they will never know what you are about to discover. That already makes you different. That already sets you apart. Imagine for a moment the weight of silence. Not the kind that makes you uncomfortable, not the one that feels empty, but the silence that reveals everything. In that stillness, you can hear the movements of your own mind, the truth of your own desires, the tremors of fears you've been running from. Silence is not emptiness, it is a weapon. It is the stage on which your strength is forged. Because only in silence can you see clearly what deserves your energy and what does not. Now think about strength. Most people confuse it with power over others, with dominance, with the ability to impose. But the strength we are speaking about is not noisy. It doesn't scream for attention. It is quiet, unshakable, the kind of strength that doesn't need applause to exist. It is the ability to remain standing when the world expects you to collapse. It is to resist the storm without shouting back at the thunder. It is to walk calmly when everything around you is chaos. And this kind of strength cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be borrowed. It is carved into your character, moment by moment, choice by choice. But strength alone is not enough. Many people are strong, yet slaves to their impulses, prisoners of their emotions, servants of desires that destroy them little by little. And that's where self-mastery enters. It is the crown of silence, the fruit of strength. Mastery is not about controlling the world, but about commanding the only territory that truly belongs to you, your mind, your actions, your reactions. The one who rules himself, rules everything. You see, every day you are tested. The world tempts you to speak when silence would give you power. The world provokes you to react when calmness would give you victory. The world pushes you to seek control outside when the only control that matters is inside. But here is the truth that most people ignore. The battle is not against them. The battle is against yourself. And every time you choose silence over noise, discipline over impulse, calm over chaos, you win. You win a war most people never even realize they are fighting. And now let me tell you a story. Picture a man walking through a crowded marketplace in ancient times. Around him, merchants shout, coins clash, people push, temptations of food, of gold, of desire pull him in every direction. But he walks in silence. His eyes are firm, his steps unshaken. He does not fight the noise. He simply rises above it. That man is not extraordinary because of his wealth, nor because of his appearance, but because nothing outside of him can command what is inside of him. That is self-mastery. That is real strength. That is the power of silence. And here's the part that should make you pause. You are that man, or at least you can be, because within you lies the same potential. The difference between ordinary and extraordinary is not talent, it is not luck. It is the discipline to own yourself when others lose themselves. Most people will never get there, but you are still listening, which means something in you refuses to be ordinary. Something in you is hungry for mastery. And when you begin to apply these three forces in your daily life, something remarkable starts to happen. The noise that once controlled you begins to lose its power. The opinions that used to crush you become whispers in the background. Suddenly you realize that the world is not as heavy as you thought. It is your lack of mastery that made it unbearable. Think of silence as the filter that cleans the water of your mind. Every day you are flooded with distractions, endless conversations, notifications, the pressure to respond, to prove, to be noticed. But when you claim your silence, you begin to separate what is essential from what is irrelevant. It's like sharpening a blade. The edge becomes clearer, stronger, unstoppable. People will wonder why you are so calm, why you don't get dragged into their drama, why their chaos does not move you. They won't understand that silence is not weakness, it is preparation. It is the ground on which your strength grows. Now imagine strength as the shield you carry, not the kind that isolates you, but the kind that makes you unbreakable. Life will not stop testing you. Betrayals, failures, losses, moments where everything you believed in seems to crumble. That's when ordinary people collapse. But you are not ordinary. You don't beg for the storm to stop. You learn to stand in the rain until the sun returns. And each time you survive what was meant to break you, your shield becomes thicker, your spirit more unshakable. But the greatest secret is this: strength without self-mastery is dangerous. Because what use is it to be powerful if you are a slave to anger? What use is it to resist the world if you cannot resist yourself? The enemy is not outside. It is the voice inside that whispers excuses, that seduces you into weakness, that begs you for pleasure instead of purpose. Self-mastery is when that voice no longer commands you. It is when discipline becomes your second skin, when temptation loses its chains over you. Let me be clear, this path is not for everyone. Most will hear these words and think, yes, it sounds good, only to return to their noise, their impulses, their chaos. They will live as prisoners of their emotions, convinced that freedom is somewhere outside of them, but not you. If you are still here listening, it means you are ready for something greater. It means you are one of the few willing to step out of the crowd, to face yourself, and to win. Because silence, strength, and self-mastery are not just ideas. They are weapons. And when you know how to use them, you stop being a spectator of life and become its architect. Picture this. You wake up in the morning, and the first thing you usually reach for is your phone. Notifications, messages, news, noise. Before your feet even touch the ground, the world already owns your attention. But what if, instead, you chose silence? What if the first few minutes of your day belonged only to you? No screens, no demands, no distractions. In that moment, you would be telling your mind, I am in control. I decide what enters my space. That small act of silence is the seat of mastery. Or think about conflict. Someone insults you, someone provokes you, and everything inside you burns to respond. Most people snap, lash out, and lose control, only to regret it later. But if you pause, if you allow silence to breathe between their action and your reaction, you take back the power. Strength here is not hitting harder with words or gestures, but resisting the urge to be dragged down to their level. That pause is where self-mastery is born. And the one who masters that pause, that person owns every battlefield they step into. Consider discipline. You decide you will work on a goal, maybe your health, your studies, your career. At first, motivation feels strong, but motivation fades. It always does. Then comes the voice that says, skip today, no one will notice. You deserve a break. That voice is cunning, seductive, and it destroys more dreams than failure ever could. But when you've trained silence, you can hear it clearly and recognize it for what it is, a trap. When you've built strength, you can resist it. And when you've cultivated mastery, you act not according to feelings, but according to purpose. That's when you separate yourself from the crowd. Here's the truth. Life is constantly offering you these small arenas to practice. A traffic jam that tests your patience, a temptation that tests your discipline, a setback that tests your resilience. Each is an opportunity not to prove yourself to others, but to prove yourself to you. And every victory, no matter how small, compounds into something extraordinary. You see, the world is full of people who can lift heavy weights, but cannot lift the weight of their own emotions. People who can build empires, but collapse under the smallest personal challenge. But you are choosing another path. Because silence sharpens you, strength fortifies you, and mastery crowns you. And when all three align, you become untouchable. History whispers the same lesson again and again. The greatest victories are not won on battlefields, but within the human spirit. Alexander could conquer nations, but if he could not conquer his own excesses, his empire would one day collapse. Marcus Aurelius, seated on the throne of Rome, surrounded by armies and wealth, understood this truth deeply. The man who cannot master himself is already enslaved, no matter his crown. And then there are those who lived in silence, far from palaces, whose names may not appear in books, but whose strength and mastery transformed entire generations. the parent who endures suffering without complaint, the thinker who resists the noise of the crowd, the leader who stays calm when chaos reigns. These are the real monuments of humanity. But let's bring this to you. You are not living in ancient Rome. You are not walking through dusty battlefields, but make no mistake, the war is still real. It happens every time you are tempted to break your word, every time you want to quit, every time you feel the urge to surrender to anger or despair. And if you lose, no one will write about it in history books, but you will feel the defeat in your own life, in wasted potential, in broken promises to yourself, in dreams that never left the ground. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine living as the kind of person who others cannot easily shake, the friend who, in the middle of crisis, radiates calm, the colleague who does not panic when everyone else does, the individual whose word is solid because they have mastered the storm inside. People will notice. They won't always understand it, but they will feel it. And that presence, that aura, is what sets you apart. That is power. Do not confuse this path with arrogance. Silence is not about thinking you are above others. It is about protecting your energy from being wasted on what doesn't matter. Strength is not about crushing the weak. It is about holding steady when the weak would collapse. And self-mastery is not about controlling everything. It is about not being controlled by anything. The beauty is this: you don't need to wait years or reach some mystical level to start. You can live it right now in small choices. When you resist answering with anger, when you delay pleasure for the sake of discipline, when you stay calm where others panic. In those moments, you are practicing the art that the great minds of history live by. And slowly, step by step, you transform. So here's the truth laid bare. Silence, strength, and self-mastery are not distant ideals. They are choices. Choices waiting for you at every hour of your life. They are the difference between living as a prisoner of circumstance or as the architect of destiny. And make no mistake, most will never dare. Most will drown in noise, break under pressure, and live enslaved by impulses they never learned to command. But not you, because the very fact that you are still here, listening, proves that you are hungry for more. This is your moment. From now on, every time life shouts at you, you will know the value of silence. Every time the storm rises, you will remember your strength. And every time temptation whispers, you will call upon mastery. And with each battle you win, you will rise above the crowd that settles for mediocrity. You are not like them. You never were. You are walking a path of transformation, of elevation, of true power. But listen carefully. Knowing is nothing without action. This message only matters if you live it. Don't let these words be just another spark that fades. Let them burn into your mind. Let them ignite the fire of discipline and courage. From this day forward, step into the world carrying silence as your shield, strength as your foundation, and mastery as your crown. And then watch how everything changes, not because the world bends to you, but because you finally bend yourself into who you were always meant to be. If this message struck something inside you, if it awakened a part of you that refuses to go back to sleep, then join this journey. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and keep walking with us through the knowledge, the challenges, and the power that few are brave enough to seek. Because this is only the beginning, and the next step is waiting for you.